Peace, Travis Soda. Well, it is Pure Sound L. And this is the world according to L. I believe, I believe everyone has a purpose, and this is where we get you on that purpose and keep you on that path of your purpose. So I know right now it's coming off listening to BBL Drizzy. I know yesterday I was talking about a little bit of what my takeaways from the Drake situation. And I mean, you gotta learn how to enjoy yourself anytime. We have so much now in entertainment, so many ways to be entertained. And why this is important, because you might be saying, well, that's the problem with people. They entertain too much. Really, they're zoned out. They're never really experiencing the joy that we're not experiencing anymore. We're not really getting into our emotions. Having a connection, with something that you truly love. I've been catching up with sports recently and watching football, watching the NBA, and I haven't watched it in years, like over 5 years easily. Like, I might have, like not avoiding it. I see it on a screen at a bar or something. If we grabbing something to eat or at someone's house, I never watched a full game until 2 weeks ago. And the first thing that I saw wasn't the game, and I wasn't hating. I wasn't thinking about people just barbecues and ball games. Shout outs to Heat and A Regular Life, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, and that scene. We'll come back to that. That's not what I saw. I didn't see people avoiding life. I didn't see a whole bunch of chumps. They just this ball game and watching men throw balls around. And I saw the tradition. I saw generations. I saw the work ethic. I definitely saw men coaching other men. And that's one of the biggest things I've been getting out of watching the sports. You know, Working on yourself. What other areas in life do we really have this? Really, the only time any of us get it, but I'm going to talk from my male perspective. The only time we get this is if we just so happen to stumble upon someone that is, naturally has that coaching gift and they've leaned into it, they've honed it, they've worked at it, because no one's a natural leader. It's a myth. There's no born leaders. You may be born with some attributes, you may be born with some qualities, maybe born with some skills, but you have to develop skill. You have to continue to work at it and work at it over years. There are no born masters. So, with that in mind, that again is a myth. It's damaging. It's not a limiting belief. It's only limiting in that you think there's not more for you to do, or you think that other people, they just came in, coming out of their mama's portal. Excuse me, coming out of their mama's portal, just already made. And Jesus wasn't even that. Yeah, he had a very high skill level and talent level he was born with. But he had to work on this. He had to go through a process to become a master. And that's where it's my spiritual school of thought. That's what we focus in on. Because we're not particularly to the idea of heaven after you die. And we say heaven's right here, and it starts right here in between the ears. It starts in the mind. And as I've been mentioning, that spirit is mental, the soul is the mind. So walking it back, leaders are made, not born. So to find someone that has a skill set and to work with them to level yourself up. I'll watch that Baltimore game, and I had heard a little bit about the quarterback, MVP. I didn't know anything about this running back. Like that's what I mean. I think I might have heard of him when he first came in the league, but maybe even heard of him when he was at Alabama. But again, I wasn't looking at sports like that. So I'm just watching this animal just run through this defense. When I watched the game against the Steelers, and then I didn't see the whole game against the Bills, but I just started getting interested. Like, okay, who this young brother? What's he about? He's gaining yards. Seems like a decent back. Like, oh, he's top tier back. He's one of the best in the league for years. The YouTube algorithm popped up talking about his ethic, his work ethic, and how much he invested into himself, into his body, into keeping himself at top physical condition. First thing, it just made me sit back and laugh about I'm not doing 1% of what this individual is doing, and I'm not playing a ball game, but I would like to get my body in shape and just to get that perspective. That's why it's always good to you got to get in the room with a master. This is what I mean by the good part of the internet, the good part of being in this time we're in is that we can get in these virtual rooms with people and get inspired very quickly. So pay attention to what you're paying attention to, because attention is your currency, meaning attention is what you think is the most important thing. So when we get into this and walking it backwards, when we get into this, the daily news cycle, the daily gossip, what's going on in your family, at your job, and we need to pay attention to these things. But how much attention are we giving? Are we giving all four? Meaning, are we giving our physical attention, our emotional attention, our spiritual attention, and our mental attention? Giving all of our attention to something? That's very different than just being present. I would say that's the physical account. That's the physical side. And paying attention physically in the here and now, dealing with what's in front of us, and then moving on to the next thing. That's a skill in itself. Which I'm going to slide right into one of the things I was working with a new client with was the personality type. The psychological types. What Carl Jung uncovered, really, as I see it, the world according to L, is that he had these 8 functions, call them cognitive functions. I call them frequencies, because these are 8 frequencies of reality itself. And where we get jammed up is that we start crossing. We need to probably work in this one area of the frequency, but we either blend it into another frequency or we just completely jump into a whole nother thought. For instance, taking care of the needs of others, caring for others, that's one frequency. Our beliefs and values, those are 2 other frequencies. So we should work on all these areas of our life the way we see it as an individual, and we should work in all these areas, outside of us, community wise. So speaking of community, join the community. Wherever you're watching this, check out the Facebook page, join the family. You want to talk about having your purpose find you, getting on the path of that purpose. That's what I help people do. Building my expertise in it, working on becoming a master. Got the link to schedule a free 30-minute booking to discover where you at and talk about where you want to be. So let's go into the topic as we move to close. Your freedom is keeping you a slave. So I rattled off a few things here. The game of football, the game of basketball. Psychological type. These are different frameworks, different structures. And here's where people's thoughts are wrong. You may be thinking freedom is doing whatever you want to do. Well, let's put it a different way. Freedom is not having responsibility. That's called childish. That's what that's called. little Godfather quote came to mind for those who know. But without responsibility is not freedom. You know, why I bring up these games in relation to freedom is that these games, there are rules to it. There's a frame, there's a court, there's a field. And we're talking about personality type, 8 different frequencies, as I call them. And then once you have that structure, you find your freedom within the structure. You know, the great ball players weren't great because they played outside the game. They played within the framework. And then they stretched our imagination of what was possible within the constraints. So now we're talking about the game of life. Now we're talking about your purpose. Which your purpose, one thing it's related to is what you're looking to be a master at, what skill you've been given. Bringing back around to spirituality, finding your God self. That only means you're just finding the part of Allah that you've been given. So we say you've been portioned with your portion of the all powerful. Because you ain't all powerful, I ain't all powerful. Just in case I need to say that for the creeps, freaks, frauds, and criminals out there. If your mind's a little off, no one's all powerful, but you have power. This is why everyone has a purpose. Don't matter what you look like, don't matter what your tan is, you have a purpose. The first constraint, the first framework, is the space and time you're in. You know, I have to operate in the 2025 space-time continuum. You know, in the geographical location I'm at, the intellectual location I'm at, you know, the spiritual location I'm at, the emotional location that I'm at. That's where I have to start and begin to develop. So, I'm going to land it right there. Don't let your want of freedom be confused with running away from your responsibility. And your responsibility, just as the best of us has always been. You know, these prophets that have brought the truth to us. Your responsibility is to develop that part of the creator that you've been given. Again, if you're looking to develop that piece of yourself, find where you at, discover yourself, click the link, free booking. Travis Soda Well. It's the world according to L. Peace and love, y'all.